Abortion is incompatible with human rights and international human rights law. And I want you to watch this until the end and really hear me. And I want you to share this with people who may disagree with this. But I want you to really watch this until the end and listen to my reasoning. So I work in human rights, and I have been struggling to reconcile how abortion is in any way compatible with the most fundamental human right of all, which is the right to life. Anybody who works in human rights understand that this is the most fundamental human right, because if you don't even have the right to life, then how can any of your other human rights be realized? You have to first have a life in order to have rights. Scientists have already come to the common consensus. Scientists, doctors, biologists have already come to the common consensus that a life begins at conception, meaning when the egg is fertilized by the sperm, a life has already began. So life begins at conception. That's how early it is. So when you abort a child, a life, that is denying them their right to life. That's essentially unaliving, killing a child. How is this in any way compatible with human rights? It's not. And now people will say, well, women should have the right to choose, right? Pro-choice. Well, there's a philosopher that put it this way. When you give the strongest members of society, and in this case, women are stronger than children, when you give the stronger members of society complete freedom of choice to do anything they want, that automatically leaves the weakest members of society more vulnerable to those people. Those stronger members of society can be compared to wolves, and the weaker members can be compared to lambs. This is the same reasoning that made it so that slavery was abolished, because slavery did used to be lawful. At some point, owning a slave was lawful. And so when slavery was abolished, it meant taking away the rights from those who owned the slaves and giving the rights to those who were formerly enslaved, taking the rights to complete freedom to do anything you wanted from those who were stronger and giving those rights to those who were weaker. So you see that not everything that has been lawful was good. So again, it's incompatible. And some people are pushing for this to be a human right. It's incompatible with human rights. Are we saying that you should have the choice to exercise the right to kill the most vulnerable members of society? Because if you can agree that what's in the womb is a life, right? It's not a clump of cells. It is a life. It is a human being. Are we saying that your freedom of choice should give you the right to kill another human being? What's the difference between doing that and me deciding, because I have the choice, to go and murder somebody right now? I have the choice to do so, don't I? But I don't, because it's unlawful, and I cannot exercise my choice over the right to life of another human being. It's unlawful. This is why women who give birth to children and throw those children in the dumpster in an effort to get rid of them and kill them are prosecuted. Even when the baby does survive, those women who attempted to kill those children are prosecuted. Now, what is the difference between a woman giving birth to a child and then attempting to murder that child, or succeeding in doing so, being prosecuted, and a woman who has killed a child in the womb? What's the difference? The only difference is the location. It's the child in the womb is still in the womb, and the child outside of the womb is outside of the womb. But that child was always a life. At conception, that child had life. So the only difference is location and time. So what we're actually saying is the most vulnerable members of society, the youngest members of society, those ones should be killed. It's incompatible. It's incompatible. Those lives in the womb, they're human beings. They have human rights outside of the vessel that is carrying them. Again, people will say, well, those lives cannot be sustained without those vessels, without those mothers carrying them. Okay, there are many people outside of the womb who depend on human beings to sustain them throughout their entire lives. There are many people that are disabled who depend on people feeding them, cleaning them, taking care of them for their entire lives. Are we to say, based on that argument, that those people should be killed because they are dependent on other human beings? What about people in comas who are dependent all their lives on human beings or on machines to keep them alive? Should we simply say that those people should be killed? We need to be very careful about how we're talking about these things, because if we can justify one thing, we can justify the other. It sounds a lot like eugenics, which, by the way, the woman who literally founded Planned Parenthood was a eugenicist. If you don't know what that is, go look that up. Is it a coincidence that a woman who founded Planned Parenthood was a eugenicist? Eugenicists, by the way, are the same kinds of people that killed the Jews during World War II, because they believed that those who were undesirable should be killed and those who were desirable should be allowed to live. So think about that. Abortion is incompatible with the right to life. Abortion is incompatible with human rights. Those children in the womb deserve to live. They deserve their human rights.